All right, let's start with the truth that nobody likes to admit. Procrastination isn't just a bad habit, it's a full-on mental battlefield. And if you've ever found yourself scrolling through Instagram, binge-watching videos, or researching something totally random instead of doing what actually matters, you're not alone. We've all been there, and here's the kicker: it feels terrible. Like really terrible. But why? Why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we sabotage our own goals, even when we know we're doing it? That's exactly what we're unpacking today. Now, let me tell you a story. This guy, Tim Urban, was in college, studying government. And like most students, he had to write a lot of papers. Nothing unusual about that, right? But here's where it gets interesting. While other students would pace themselves, spreading their work across days or weeks, Tim, he had a different game plan, or more accurately, no plan at all. Instead of starting early, he procrastinated. Every single time. You might think, okay, that's relatable. I do that too, but Tim took it to another level. He once had to write a 90-page thesis, a project you're supposed to spend a year on, and guess when he started? 3 days before the deadline. 3 days. He stayed up for 72 hours straight, writing nonstop, fueled by coffee and panic, and barely turned it in on time. And no, it wasn't some miracle where he discovered his inner genius and submitted the best thesis ever. Spoiler alert, it was terrible. But here's the twist: Tim's story isn't unique. It's something so many of us can relate to. Let's pause for a second and ask a question: why do we keep procrastinating, even when we know it's going to hurt us in the end? Seriously, think about the last time you procrastinated. How did it feel? Probably a mix of guilt, anxiety, and frustration, right? That's because procrastination isn't just about putting things off. It's about what's happening in your brain.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Here's where things get mind-blowing. In Tim's TED Talk, he explains something fascinating. The brain of a procrastinator isn't the same as a non-procrastinator's brain. Sure, both have this thing called the rational decision maker. That's the part of your brain that knows what you should be doing, like writing that essay, finishing that project, or hitting the gym. But procrastinators have something extra, something that hijacks the wheel. Enter the instant gratification monkey. Now, I know what you're thinking: a monkey? Really? But stick with me. The instant gratification monkey is a metaphor for the part of your brain that only cares about what feels good right now. It doesn't think about the future. It doesn't remember the consequences of your past decisions. It just wants what's easy and fun in the moment. So when the rational decision maker tries to steer you towards something productive, the monkey grabs the wheel and says, "Nah, let's check the fridge again. Maybe there's something new in there since the last time we looked." Or, "Let's watch one more YouTube video. Just one. Promise sound familiar?" Here's the problem: the monkey doesn't care about deadlines, responsibilities, or the big picture. It's not evil, it's just wired for short-term pleasure. And let's be real, sometimes it's okay to let the monkey take over. Life isn't all about hard work. But when the monkey is in charge all the time, you end up in what Tim calls the dark playground, a place where you're doing things that are supposed to be fun, but they're not fun at all because you're overwhelmed with guilt and anxiety. It's like trying to enjoy a vacation while knowing you're failing a class back home. You can't even relax properly. Now, here's the million-dollar question: how do you escape the monkey's grip? That's where things get interesting, and we'll tackle that in the next part. But before we move on, think about this: if the monkey is always in charge, who's really running your life? And if you're not in control, where are you headed? Stay tuned, because in the next part, we're unleashing the secret weapon every procrastinator has, and trust me, it's not what you think. So we've all been there, the monkeys in the driver's seat, and you're stuck in the dark playground, wasting time while your responsibilities pile up. But here's the twist: procrastinators have a secret weapon. It's not discipline. It's not motivation. It's something way more primal. Enter the panic monster. The panic monster is like that friend who only shows up when things are about to go horribly wrong. You know, the one, they're unreliable, chaotic, but somehow they always save the day when you're in trouble. Here's how it works: the panic monster stays asleep most of the time. But as soon as a deadline gets dangerously close, or there's a real risk of public embarrassment, career disaster, or some other major consequence, the monster wakes up. And when it does, the monkey freaks out and runs for cover. Think about it. Have you ever had a project you couldn't start for weeks, but then, the night before it's due, you suddenly find this superhuman ability to focus? That's the panic monster at work. It's not pretty, but it gets the job done. Tim Urban explains that this chaotic system monkey, rational decision maker, and panic monster is how procrastinators operate. It's messy, stressful, and exhausting, but for short-term deadlines, it works. But here's the thing: what happens when there's no deadline? That's where procrastination gets dangerous. Think about the big goals in your life: starting a business, writing a book, building a relationship, or taking care of your health. These things don't come with due dates. There's no professor, boss, or client breathing down your neck. And without a deadline, the panic monster has no reason to wake up. The monkey stays in charge, and those big dreams, they stay dreams. Forever. Let's get real for a second. How many times have you told yourself, "I'll start tomorrow," only to find that tomorrow never comes? How many things have you already put off in your life, not because you can't do them, but because there's no urgency to start? That's the trap of long-term procrastination. It's not loud or chaotic. It's quiet, subtle. And before you know it, years have gone by, and you're still waiting for the right moment to begin. So how do you break free? You can't rely on the panic monster for goals without deadlines. Instead, you have to create your own urgency. One strategy is to set artificial deadlines. Break your big goals into smaller tasks with mini deadlines that force you to act. Another is accountability. Tell someone about your goal and ask them to check in on your progress. It's amazing how much pressure you'll feel when someone else is expecting results. But here's the real question you need to ask yourself: what's the cost of doing nothing? Not in money or time, but in your life. If you never start that passion project, if you never take care of your health, if you never fix that broken relationship, where will you be in 5 years? 10? That's the question the rational decision maker wants you to answer. And once you do, you might find that the panic monster isn't the only thing that can motivate you. In the next part, we're diving deep into the real reason why procrastination feels so heavy and how you can finally take control. All right, so we've talked about the monkey, the panic monster, and the chaos of procrastination. But let's zoom out for a second. Let's talk about your time. Because here's the thing: procrastination isn't just about wasting hours or days. It's about wasting your life. And if that sounds dramatic, good. It should. Tim Urban introduces something called the life calendar, and it's a game changer. Imagine this: you take a 90-year life and break it down into weeks. That's about 4,680 weeks total. Sounds like a lot, right? But now think about how many weeks you've already used. How many are left? When you see it visually, it's shocking. It's like someone turning over an hourglass and showing you how much sand is left. It's a wake-up call. So here's the big question: what are you really procrastinating on? Not just in your work or school, but in your life. What are the things you keep putting off, even though you know they matter? Because the truth is, the monkey isn't just stealing your time. It's stealing your chance to live the life you want. And the only way to stop it is to take action today. Not tomorrow. Not sometime soon. Days now. The life calendar isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to remind you that every week counts. Every box you fill in is a chance to do something meaningful. So the next time the monkey tries to take over, ask yourself, is this how I want to spend one of the limited weeks I have left? It's a simple question, but it's powerful. And it might just be the thing that gets you out of the dark playground and into the life you've been dreaming of. Now that we've laid it all out, the monkey, the panic monster, and the life calendar, you're probably feeling a mix of emotions. Maybe you're motivated. Maybe you're overwhelmed. Maybe you're even angry at yourself for wasting so much time in the past. And that's okay. Let's take a deep breath together, because here's the truth: the past doesn't matter anymore. It's gone. Done. The only thing that matters is what you do next. Remember those empty boxes in your life calendar? They're not just a countdown to the end. They're opportunities. They're blank spaces waiting to be filled with action, growth, and experiences that actually mean something to you. And the best part, you don't have to fill them perfectly. You just have to start. So how do you start? Let's break it down into 3 steps: simple, actionable steps you can take right now to stop procrastinating and take control of your life. If you've ever heard the story of the jar with rocks, pebbles, and sand, you'll know that the big rocks are the things that matter most in life. Your health, your relationships, your goals. The things that, if left unattended, will lead to regret. So here's your first task: grab a piece of paper and write down your big rocks. What are the things you've been procrastinating on, not just for weeks, but for years? Is it starting that business? Repairing a broken friendship? Spending more time with your family? Write them all down. Don't overthink it, just write. Now look at your list. How many of these things have you been avoiding because they don't have a deadline? That's the monkey's trick, remember? It convinces you that there's no urgency. But here's the reality: every day you wait is a day closer to losing your chance. If you don't prioritize your big rocks, the sand, the small, meaningless distractions will fill your jar. So, what's your first big rock? Circle it. That's your starting point. We talked earlier about how the panic monster thrives on deadlines. So what if you could trick your brain into waking it up earlier? That's where micro deadlines come in. Let's say your goal is to write a book. Instead of thinking, I'll finish it in a year, break it down into tiny, manageable chunks. I'll write 1 page a day for the next week, or I'll outline the first chapter by Friday. The trick here is to make the deadlines feel real. Tell a friend about them. Write them on your calendar. Set reminders. The more tangible the deadline, the harder it is for the monkey to ignore. And here's the magic of micro deadlines: they create momentum. Once you start checking things off, you'll feel a sense of accomplishment that makes it easier to keep going. It's like pushing a snowball down a hill. The hardest part is getting it moving, but once it's rolling, it picks up speed on its own. Let's be honest, the monkey isn't going anywhere. It's part of your brain, and it's going to pop up every time you face something hard or boring. But instead of fighting it, what if you could outsmart it? That's where systems come in. A good system makes it harder for the monkey to take over. For example, if you tend to procrastinate by scrolling through social media, delete the apps from your phone or at least move them to a folder that's harder to access. If you get distracted by YouTube, install a browser extension that blocks it during your work hours. If you have trouble starting tasks, use the 2-minute rule. Commit to working for just 2 minutes. Most of the time, you'll keep going once you've started. And here's the most important part: reward yourself. Remember, the monkey loves easy and fun. So after you complete a task, give yourself a little treat, a snack, a 5-minute break, or an episode of your favorite show. This trains your brain to associate productivity with pleasure, which makes it easier to stay on track in the long run. Let's zoom out one last time. Imagine yourself 10 years from now. Picture your future self looking back at today. What would they say to you? Would they thank you for taking action, or would they wish you'd started sooner? That's the perspective the rational decision maker wants you to have. It's not about perfection. It's about progress. One box at a time, one step at a time, you can take control of your life. And here's the real kicker: you already have everything you need to succeed. The rational decision maker is in there, waiting to take the wheel. The panic monster is ready to wake up when you need it. And the monkey? Well, it's not your enemy. It's just a part of you that needs a little guidance. So, the question isn't whether you can do it. The question is, will you? If this video resonated with you, don't just let it be another thing you watch and forget about. Take one small action today. Write down your big rocks. Set a micro deadline. Share your goals with someone. And if you're feeling brave, drop a comment below and tell us what's the one thing you've been procrastinating on the most. Let us know, because once you say it out loud, it becomes real. And who knows? Maybe this is the moment that changes everything. If you found this video helpful, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Let's help each other take control of our calendars and our lives. Thanks for watching, and remember, the clock is ticking. Make it count.